The living room was a little bit overly full of distractions and background noise and generally, yeah, just a little too high traffic out there. So I'm back to this setup, and I'll just try to keep track of how long I'm streaming and try to keep that limited. Maybe move around a little bit more if I can. Okay. That'll be good? Yeah, we'll go with that. Okay. Yeah, we're on chapter 35 of Black Wolf, which of course you can find in text version at prismcat.com/blackwolf, and the Wattpad version is the most up-to-date version, sorry. I'm going to keep reading out loud here on Twitch until I get to the end of this book, and after that I will decide how much interest there has been and if there's really any point to picking up another one and starting to read a different book, because I have several of them. I write a lot. They don't always necessarily end up as nice, clean-cut, finished novels, but I have a couple of serials and 4 finished novels in total. So I can find more stuff to read. And I have some friends who would probably be fine with me borrowing theirs if I really wanted to. So, yeah, if you're interested and you're following this and you're enjoying it, please let me know some way so that I know whether I should continue doing this or not. I don't mind taking the time to do it out of the day as long as it's not just, yelling into a void. I can use the time for writing instead if there's nobody at all listening. Alright, so, here we go. No, that was not the right thing. Why did you go weird and small like that? Alrighty. So Jesse is still back in the city, still thinking that everybody in Haven is mad at him, and everybody in Haven is still madly looking for him. I shouldn't say everybody in Haven. Obviously some aren't, but his friends in Haven are. Hey, sweetheart. Also, I have a feline co-host who's just off camera and snoozing happily. Hello. 35. Rebecca left the bank at 5 and decided to wander the village rather than going home. The increasing tension within Whitethorn wasn't something she really wanted to deal with just now. It might be worth it to see what was new at Donovan's shop. She walked the 3 blocks to Arachne's loom, deep in her own troubled thoughts. Eveline and Liam were there, Eveline holding up a rather attractive blue and orange dress against her, and waiting for Liam's opinion. I think you should try... He broke off and glanced towards Rebecca. Eveline echoed it and growled, low in her throat. Rebecca ignored her, and swept past them towards the back of the shop. She stopped to look at a rack of brightly colored vests, some made silk, some made by more conventional methods. Eveline came up behind her. We're going to find him. We'll get him home somehow. You aren't going to win. I really don't care, Rebecca said disdainfully. Find him, forget him, it makes no difference to me. She considered telling Eveline how interested the demon plane seemed to be in Jesse, but decided against it. Why should she give them free information? Sam said something the first time she saw Jess. She said that he is a lot more than a stray out of the city, and anyone who forgets that is going to regret it. I wouldn't blame him if he decided it's his turn for a little revenge once he comes home. And he will. That bond between him and Kevin and Gisela is too strong. I'm sorry, I must not have made this clear. She spun around and met Eveline's eyes levelly. I do not care. At all. I do not need your pathetic attempts at threats. I do not care what Samantha said. And truthfully, given how easily manipulated that black wolf of yours is, I am not especially worried about whether he hates me. Excuse me. She stepped around Eveline and stopped at a rack of long skirts. Eveline made a disgusted sound. Kevin's right. You are a coward. You've lost face with every wolf in Haven for this. Rebecca gritted her teeth, acutely aware of that fact, and hating it. Had she challenged Jesse openly, beaten him in a fair fight, and driven him away from Haven, that would be acceptable behavior. Not that it would have endeared her to the other wolves, but she would at least have not lost face. Being implicated as the voice behind Avril's treachery, however, was another matter, and it damaged her standing with the Haven wolves badly. The opinions of non-wolves didn't matter, but her status with the wolves did. There seemed, however, to be no way to negate it without making it worse. Eveline, she said, surely you have something better to do with your time. Are you really so bored? You're not a wolf, Eveline spat, turning away. You're a dog pretending to be a wolf. Holding her growing anger firmly in check wasn't easy, but this was neither the time nor the place to fight Eveline. It would only make her look even worse. Damn this whole mess. She was sorry now. She had ever laid eyes on Kevin Leorin, and thought she could have him to herself. Directly and indirectly, he was the ultimate reason why she was now standing in quicksand and had to hunt for a way to escape it. Elves were more trouble than they were worth. "36. For the 100th time, Kevin settled himself on his bed with his homework. For the 100th time, he read the same paragraph, but it still made no sense to him. For the 100th time, he gave up, went back to pacing restlessly around the room. Deanna knocked quietly on the door and crossed the room to hug him. Are you okay? You're broadcasting pretty strongly. Sorry. That isn't what I meant, and you know it. What's wrong? I don't know. Something's wrong, but I don't know what or where, but I can't get it out of my head. Jess? She asked gently. He sighed. I was trying not to think that. Give up on the homework. Come on downstairs. Well, I'm not accomplishing much up here. Past Jessie's empty room, a constant reminder of something rarely far from anyone's thoughts anyway. The equinox was just past. It was less than a week to Jessie's birthday. How under the sun had he made everybody love him so much that 2 months later they were still worrying about him all the time? He found no more peace in the cozy dining room with his coven mates. Flynn intent on a jigsaw puzzle on the table, Cynthia curled up in one corner of the couch with her current knitting project, Bane dozing fur form on the rug by the wood stove. Restlessly, he picked up the brush from the ledge by the wood stove and sat cross-legged beside Bane. He had to smile when the wolf woke at the first touch and helpfully rearranged himself so Kevin could reach him more easily. Deanna claimed the other end of the couch and retrieved an oversized book lying open and face down beside her, revealing a notebook under it. Research for something, apparently. Kevin concentrated on brushing Bane's heavy fur, tangle-free and shining soft, always a popular pastime for both wolves and friends. Even that couldn't calm him as it usually did. He laid down the brush and got up. I'm going for a walk. Bane growled half-heartedly and went back to his nap. He made no effort to decide where to go, simply let instinct lead him where it would, trusting to his own deeper self to take him where his conscious self couldn't. A wolf, snarling, somewhere ahead. He knew wolves well enough to recognize it as defensive, not aggressive. He ran down the rest of that hill, up the higher one in front of him, and found a small black wolf, with two unnaturally large grey wolves at his heels. The black wolf staggered, all too obviously, exhausted, but he still spun around clumsily to attack. The grey wolf slipped to the side, got around behind him, and snapped at his flank, and the other mirrored it. Jess tried again, with no more luck. The grey wolves weren't going to let him stand and fight. They drove him back into a faltering, limping run again, matching his speed without letting him slow. Kevin felt pure heat surge along every nerve, a sensation he recognized, the wild, mad ecstasy of power, stirred and fed by strong emotion. He had learned the seductive joy of it, along with the satisfaction of taming it under Thomas, surrendered himself to it with Rebecca, and mastered it again. This time, he was in control of it, and not the other way around. He crossed the road, so he was directly in their path. Jess almost hit him. He stumbled again, this time fell, and simply lay there, sides heaving. Kevin stepped between Jess and the grey wolves. They were neither werewolves, nor true wolves, Mage Sight told him. They were constructs, mage-made, something that he'd only ever heard of as a theory, since it took immense amounts of power and a high level of skill. "Come on," he told them, his voice dangerously quiet. "Try to get him now." They hesitated, pacing back and forth. Their programming probably didn't include what to do if they were confronted directly by someone other than their prey. Gisela darted out of the trees and made directly for Jess. Somehow he wasn't surprised she had felt the same call that had brought him here. The healer dropped to her knees beside the collapsed black wolf. Kevin reached into the sunlight, let that combine with the rage, felt the brilliant heat of more raw power than most mages could hope to survive unscathed. Part of it he used to shield Jess and Gisela. He heard Gisela whisper, "Uh-oh. Brace yourself, Jess." The rest, with no attempt at shaping it, beyond directing it to its targets, he turned loose on the two constructs. The intoxicating strength of it washed over him. What he knew would have put most mages on their knees in agony was to him an electric high. The constructs, with yowls of protest, melted back into the formless, solid energy masses they had been made from. Then even that disintegrated back to its natural state. The power was still there, begging to be used. There wasn't anyone who could stop him if he chose to take what it offered. "Kev?" Gisela said softly, her voice shaky. Not afraid, exactly, but not far from it. Grimly, he leashed the power, channeled it away, back into the sunlight. It obeyed. It was himself he had to fight to do it. He turned around and scooped Jessie up carefully, using enough of the lingering power to lighten his weight. "I'm okay, kitten," he said, surprised at his own hoarseness. "I'm not going to lose it." "I was starting to wonder for a minute, but I didn't really think you would." Near miss, but not quite. That faith felt better, in a way, than the ecstasy of being at the heart of so much power. With his arms full of a weakly struggling wolf, he had to shape the gate with his mind alone. He waited for Gisela to step through, then followed. The road vanished, replaced by the solid familiarity of the living room. The rest of Sundark were in the dining room still, but everyone was talking at once. When he and Gisela came in, abrupt silence fell. Then came a dozen questions, all over top of one another. "Be quiet for a minute," he told them sharply, and laid Jess down on the now vacant couch. "Is he okay, Zella?" She perched on the edge, rested a hand on his side, and closed her eyes. Hob jumped up to investigate, unsurprisingly, but Cynthia picked him up and held him in her arms where he could watch without being in the way. "I think so. He's hurt in a few places, but nothing's really bad. There's traces of some kind of poison. It did an awful lot of damage before his body recognized it and countered it. I don't know what it was. They must have had poisoned teeth. Those look like bites. Mostly just exhaustion. Kev, they must have chased him for hours. It's a wonder he made it here at all." "Who chased him?" Vane demanded, more than a hint of growl in his voice. "I'll see what I can fix, but mostly he just needs to sleep, and not do much when he wakes up. At least he can't run away again for a while. I don't think he'd make it out of Janicot." More silence, no one willing to break her concentration while she was intent on healing. "That's all I can do," she pronounced finally. "Can you take him to his room?" Wordlessly, Kevin gathered him up again. He heard Gisela tell the others to stay there. Then she joined him. "Hey, old dude. You gonna come join me?" "What? What? What is with the little unhappy sounds? Come here." There you go. I gotcha. Hey, old dude. Gisela flipped back the blankets so Kevin could lay Jessie down again, this time in his own bed. The wolf stirred restlessly, and his form fluxed to human. Kevin didn't think he was even entirely conscious. "You are blocking my view at moments." He nestled into the blankets Gisela drew over him, and relaxed completely. Hob darted in the door, launched himself onto the bed, and curled up next to Jess, glaring defiance of anyone who might dare try to move him again. On some level, he knows he's home safe. Gently, Kevin brushed raven dark hair away from Jessie's face. "I promise, Jess, I'm not going to make you sorry ever again for trusting me. Just please give me a chance." "Your turn," Gisela said, and motioned to the love seat. Kevin decided not to argue, sat down and let her examine him. "No more stretching for a couple of days," she told him. "You've got a mild case of backlash. It's been a long time since you used that much power all at once. Why don't you stay here and catnap a bit? I'll explain to your coven and make sure someone brings you something to eat." "Okay." He coiled himself so he could rest his head on his arm on the love seat. Gisela settled a mage silk blanket over him, kissed his cheek fleetingly, and left the door ajar a couple of inches for Hob behind her. 37. Gisela made her way back downstairs to the dining room. Sundark hadn't calmed down noticeably. She was all but attacked. With proper healer composure, she leaned against the doorway and waited for them to stop all talking at once. "There were 2 constructs, shaped like wolves, chasing Jess," she explained calmly. "Kev and I got there at almost the same time. He destroyed them. Better yet, he did it without losing control. He's pretty badly shaken up, though. They're both up in Jessie's room. I'm going to get Kev something to eat, and after that, don't even think about disturbing either one." The phone rang. Cynthia picked it up. "Hey, Laurie. Here, ask Zella." Gisela crossed the room to take the phone, repeated the story for Laurie. She'd felt the disturbance, she said, and asked her to explain to the other Haven mages. "I'll tell Catherine and Thomas," Laurie promised. "Everybody else will be calling them to ask. Only Thomas and Moira and I would be familiar enough with Kev's signature to identify it that fast from a distance. Naomi picked up the fringes of it too, so it was strong enough for at least the witches who know Kev to sense. I'll call Winter. Any other witches who noticed can find out on their own." "He's all right?" "They both are." "Leave it to Kev." "Right, I'll talk to you later." Gisela hung up and dialed Coven Winter's number. Liam answered. "Is Nick okay?" she asked him. "He and Sonia are cuddled together on the couch, and I'm not sure which one is more shaken up. What's going on?" Typical that hypersensitive Sonia would also catch it. She repeated her account yet again. "Why am I not surprised at that being the source? Need me for Jess?" "Wouldn't hurt, but it can wait till you take care of Sonia and Nick. It'll be mostly trying to clear out the fatigue poisons faster than his body can, plus some overextended muscles. Other than that, there are a couple of bites. That's about it." "I'll be over in a while then." "Right. Bye." She returned the phone to its cradle. "It even hit Naomi and Nick and Sonia," she told Sundark. "Typical," Bane growled softly. "When Phoenix gets angry, he has to let everyone in Haven know." "You know it's going to hurt Kev if you say things like that in his hearing. If I could, I would have done the same thing after what they were doing to Jess." Just the thought was enough to put unhealer-like visions in her head. What depths of cruelty did it take to try to kill a wolf by running him until he collapsed? She got her feelings back under control firmly. "I'll be up in Kev's room. Liam will be over sooner or later." She detoured to the kitchen to fill a plate with Kevin's ever-present homemade cookies and a large cup with juice, added a hasty sandwich of leftover roast beef, delivered it, and roused Kevin enough for him to start automatically eating. Kevin wasn't going to mind if she sat here on his bed across the hall, legs crossed tailor fashion. There were prices on being a healer and helping her friends, and one of them was self-discipline. Less than 2 months shy of 19, she was no longer an apprentice with the luxury of letting her feelings show. She was a healer, finished the basic training every healer had, and near the end of the somewhat more complex training necessary for a healer who routinely dealt with all 4 races, if nowhere near to the height of her power. Self-discipline was as important to a healer as it was to a witch or an elven mage. To the witch, because loss of control made the elements respond. The mage, because loss of control could be extremely destructive. And to a healer, because if her feelings ruled, they would hinder her in what her first priority must always be. She closed her eyes, slowed her breathing, reached to the earth to ask it to give her energy and accept her chaotic feelings. A gentle, psychic touch, the equivalent of a knock at the door. Liam letting her know he was there, and asking her to come back. There was no hurry. She could take her time coming out of the trance. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. "Mm-hmm." "Don't lie to the healers, Ella." "Really, just a lot of feelings hitting me all at once. Anger at whoever did this, relief that Jesse's home, and I'm scared of what'll happen when he wakes up. If he sees this as a betrayal, Liam, I'm the only one that won't make either one throw up all shields." "You'll talk them through it if you need to." "Sure, if I don't mess up. You know as well as I do how hard it is to judge Jess." "I know." Eveline and Brian had done as much research as they could on runaways and homelessness, and shared the results. The most common theme was that they were fleeing home situations that made even street life a better option, and that most of them were frighteningly trapped by the system, and mistrust became a survival trait. That made it easier to understand Jessie's sometimes erratic behavior. It was enough to make Gisela certain that she truly didn't know nearly enough. Liam leaned forward and hugged her. Trust your instincts, and don't forget loving them both, and you'll do fine. Right, let's go see what we can do about the easy part. 38. The chapters get a little bit shorter this late in the book. There's actually 60 some chapters total, but we're more than halfway. Master? Sakyle said tentatively. Patrick turned his head, not otherwise inclined to move. His latest acquisition gave extremely enjoyable back rubs, and given all the stress in his life, it was wonderful to be able to relax. What? I have a report. Sakyle fidgeted restlessly. It looked worried, Patrick thought, which was not a good sign at all. With a sigh, Patrick said, "Stop for the moment, Jake," and sat up. Jake immediately shifted out of the way, his attention never moving from the mage, the presence of the demon unimportant. Convinced absolutely by his religion that he was damned beyond hope of salvation because he felt no sexual attraction to females, only to males, the lean-muscled high school track star had been opened to an amazing degree to a combination of kindness and firmness with very little magic. All right, report. The constructs you sent after the Black Wolf... Sakyle hesitated. Out with it. They've been destroyed. Anger surged. What do you mean destroyed? He demanded. Completely unmade, Master. There's nothing left of them anywhere for me to find. It was even odds whether Sakyle or Jake looked more frightened. But the trail leads towards Haven. Haven! Patrick repeated slowly, and spat a curse. Damn it! There should have been no possible way for him to reach any kind of useful help. Those constructs had been works of art, carefully designed to run the Black Wolf to death, then use his life energy to kill the annoying human, and finally, when strongest, go after the mage. Did you not tell me that the wolf would not go to Haven? Something about a combination of feeling betrayed and guilty? He ran away from the ones who tried to protect him, Sakyle whimpered. We don't understand why he went towards Haven, or how he made it so far. And I personally have driven him right back into the arms of that damned Leorin. No, don't bother answering that. And the human? Still in the city, Master. Total waste of time and power, Patrick concluded in disgust. I am not at all happy with you, Sakyle. Your information about that wolf and his ridiculously loyal friends has so far been extremely inaccurate. I'm going to have to think of a way to punish you for that, although nothing comes to mind just now. Yes, Master, Sakyle said meekly. Now get out of here. I don't want to see you until I call you. Is that clear? Yes, Master. Sakyle vanished. How does that fucking little wolf do it? Patrick growled. Right back to Haven, so that Leorin could stop me a third time. He sighed. I'm not going to take it out on you, Jake. The boy was only human, and belonged to him. Furious as Patrick was, he could wait until he had an appropriate target. Eyes wide and worried, Jake inched back into reach. Is there any way I can help? He asked tentatively. Finishing that back rub would be a good way. He stretched out again and gradually began to relax once more under Jake's hands. He'd been in this city for some time now. He toyed with the idea of taking Jake with him when he left. That might actually be best for him, get him away from the people who had made him believe there was something wrong with him for simply being who he was. He was intelligent, personable, and athletic, with no innate emotional difficulties that Patrick had been able to find. His fear of damnation over the single so-called sin of orientation, and the accompanying sense of isolation and alienation, was the only vulnerable point Patrick had been able to find. Reluctantly, he had to admit that, fond as he was of Jake at the moment, he'd get bored in time, and it would hardly be in the boy's best interest to be abandoned in a strange place. It would be better to leave him here, but disabuse him of this idea that his parents' God had any power over him. A suggestion that he take a serious look into the real history of the religion, definitely. He could use gentleness, simply show Jake his power, and tell him to think for himself. Or would fear leave a stronger impression, a new terror, to combat the old one of hell, proof that his parents' God had no ability to protect him? Maybe he needed to pay a visit to the parents who had inflicted this on Jake in the first place. For now, he kept his attention on that, while deep inside, rage and frustration simmered quietly. Luck couldn't keep the wolf and his protectors safe forever. He'd find a way, sooner or later, but it was obviously going to take a great deal of thought and planning, and information more accurate than he had so far been given. Better to go slow than to give that Leorin a chance to show off again. "39. I'm astonished that the mic is not picking up all the purring from right beside me. Somebody is a very happy, sleepy cat right now. I wonder if I can turn this a bit and show you. There we go. He is very content right at the moment. He's got a 60-watt bulb right over top of him, and I'm reaching over to pet him all the time. He doesn't know the meaning of the word stress. Well, he's a cat. He doesn't have the biggest vocabulary in some ways anyway. But, you know what I mean. And he does understand some words, trust me. Sweetheart. There we go. Okay. Back to wolves instead of cats. 39. Silky blankets. A soft bed under him. Familiar scents. Haven, his own room, Jessie realized sleepily. Must have been a wilder party than usual. He stirred, felt the pull of partly healed wounds on his hips and sides. That woke him up completely, brought back the memory of running, trying repeatedly and vainly to fight off his tormentors, long past the point of instinct taking over from reason. Those same instincts had taken him back to Haven. More hazy was a memory of seeing the two wolves that had been chasing him with impossible endurance melt and vanish, of Kevin with power swirling around him in a blindingly bright aura, of Gisela crouched beside him with her hand tangled tightly in his fur. No wonder he felt so awful. Carefully, he untangled himself and got shakily to his feet. He was glad the bathroom was close and there were no stairs to navigate. He barely made it that far before he had to stop and lean against the wall. Shit, there's no way I'm gonna make it back to the city. I'm stuck here. Damn it. He turned on the shower and stepped under the hot water. By letting the wall take much of his weight, he stayed on his feet until he had gotten rid of all the sweat and mud from his nightmarish run. Sorry, I just noticed there's somebody... Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to keep track of Discord, but that's a friend saying hi, and she understands about streaming, so it's fine. I am really getting sick of having to be rescued. I'd give a lot for something I can actually fight back against for a change. Clean, he paused to evaluate his condition. One of the healers had been at the bites. Other than them and feeling like, well, he'd been roaming some distance north of the city to hunt, but still quite a long way from Haven. He was in reasonable condition. Christ, if anyone ever wondered just how tough a werewolf really is, I think I just proved it. Of course, I don't think I was going to make it any farther than I did. And damn it all, I bet I wouldn't have stayed on my feet that long if I didn't know there was someone at the other end of the road that would help. All I want is to stay with Shane and not have to feel anything anymore. Shane's gonna freak. They can't have been really wolves. They didn't get tired at all. Reluctantly, he went back to his room. Why wasn't he surprised that no one had touched anything, waiting for him to come back? Leave me alone. Stop messing with my head. Stop making me feel. He found a pair of jeans and a t-shirt and got dressed, pausing more than once when weakness made the room spin wildly. Someone knocked softly on the open door. He identified Gisella's scent even before he turned around. She set a plate of food and a glass of juice on the chest. Thought you might be hungry. Feeling pretty rough? You could say that. Well, you did the highly improbable again by getting here still alive. Eveline says she's never heard of such a thing. You must have the purest demon luck ever. Liam thinks you have 9 lives like a cat. Then I'm probably running out fast. Sit down and eat. I won't let anybody bother you. But I can't get rid of you. She didn't get mad, simply shrugged and smiled. If I go, there's no one left to keep everyone else away, so you'll have to put up with me. His stomach growled at him, so he picked up the plate and sat down on the bed to eat. Like anyone cares. Everyone cares. You could have come to me, or to Sam or Eva, instead of running away. Yeah, right. If I thought I'd make it past the gates, I'd be out of here by now. Back to where nobody cares? Back to where nobody tells me they trust me and lies. She sat on the floor, legs crossed, facing him. Haven't you ever made a mistake, Jess? Kev can make mistakes too. Kev feels so awful that for about 2 weeks, Sundark was in serious danger of falling apart. Jessie stopped mid-bite. No way. They'd never break. They'd be together as long as any of them were alive. Gisela, watching him closely, nodded. They really were, and nothing I did helped. Jess, Kev gated to the city to stop that mage from getting you, remember? For the second time, actually. Apparently he had to chase off the same one back just before you met me. He really cares. We all do. It was only that everybody was so stressed out, and Rebecca used that. Rebecca? What does she have to do with this? Avril's in her coven. Rebecca set up a trap. No one talks much about her and Kevin, or you'd know just how evil it actually was. Believe me, she managed to hurt you and Kev about equally badly, and everyone else through the 2 of you. What do you know about hurting? He flung at her, suddenly wanting to do just that, make her hurt like he did. You aren't the only one who's ever been hurt. Listen to me, Jess. Your life is your own. You can do whatever you want with it. As soon as you get your strength back, no one can stop you from going back to the city. That's your choice. But if you do, you should at least think about all the consequences. Like the fact that Kev will never forgive himself. And I am not exaggerating. Like the fact that Sam hasn't ever been happy like she is when you're here. and she's been miserable ever since you ran away. Like the fact that Bane has been alternately moping and snapping. I could keep going for a long time, but I'm not going to, because right now, you need to finish eating and then rest. I'll come back in a while. She got to her feet and left the room. Gisela wouldn't lie. Anybody can lie. No, not Zella. She wouldn't lie. And however tired I am, my nose still works. I would have smelled it. Sort of like I smelled Kev lying when he told me we're friends. So either they're both lying or both telling the truth. Damn it all. How come I have to get hurt every time I trust somebody? Nobody else seems to. How come I can't have a family? Any family except Shane, anyway. And even Shane lied to me when he told me to get out. He finished the food, gulped the juice, and curled into a tight ball in his bed, everything inside spinning in confused tangles. Shane had lied, made him stay in Haven, so Shane was part of it. For all he knew, Kevin might have sent the Grey Wolves to chase him back to Haven, except that if Kevin really didn't care, why would he? How should he know? He didn't know why that mage was after him either, or for that matter, what the real source of Rebecca's grudge against Sundark was. No one would ever talk about it. Was that supposed to mean he could trust Kevin and Shane and Rebecca all about equally? And what about his faith in Bane and the rest of the pack? But Bane had been there too, and felt the same as Kevin, and had abandoned him. Nothing made any sense anymore. Hob jumped up next to him, and snuggled close, purring at high volume. Jess rubbed his throat and ears absently, grateful for the friendly company, and certain that at least this member of the household had no ulterior motives. He must have dozed off. When he opened his eyes again, the sunny windows had turned dark. Hob was gone, leaving only black fur that wasn't Jess's own, and Gisela was beside him, though he hadn't heard her come in. "Supper time!" She smiled when he growled in annoyance, the sound rumbling deep in his throat. "Jess, you wore yourself out thoroughly. Expect not to do much beyond eating and sleeping for a few days. Even for wolves, and even for the wolf the other wolves are calling tough, there are limits. You reach them, and then some." "Great. First Shane's going to be glad I'm alive, then he's going to kill me. Any way to get a hold of him?" "There's no phone, if that's what you mean." "I could tell someone to go find him, even bring him here if you want." Jessie weighed that, risks against benefits. "Yeah, sure, why not? Flynn's been there, but I doubt he remembers." He rolled over to grab the pad of paper in the drawer of the table, tried to clear his thoughts, enough to give directions that would work in a car, and then put approximate times on the points in their usual daily routine when Shane might actually be there. "That's where the apartment is, and more or less the times you might catch him there." She accepted the sheet of paper he handed her. "I'll find someone. Do you want him to come?" "Doesn't matter what I want. Shane does what he wants." "How careful do we need to be?" "He knows I'm Wolf. Never even blinked." I'd love to know why elven mage battles and werewolves don't throw him at all. "Okay, supper's on the chest." Alone, again. He ate without even tasting the food. I wonder what Shane's going to do, other than tear strips out of my hide, because I promised I'd be back within a couple of days. Shane in Haven. Poor Haven. Section break. Where's my tea? There's my tea. There we go. Jesus, Jess, can't I ever take my eyes off you for an hour without you getting into trouble? Jess jerked awake sharply, out of restless, confusing dreams. Something to do with a silver dagger lying underwater, but every time his hand touched the surface, the dagger disappeared in the ripples like a reflection. He rolled over to find Shane standing there, arms crossed, expression dark. "Stop yelling at him!" Gisela protested. "He's in bad shape." "The hell he is. You've never seen him in bad shape." "He needs rest, not lectures." "He needs the common sense God gave seaweed." "Chill out, Zella," Jessie said, and managed to sit up with a reasonable amount of grace. "I'm used to it." "It wasn't your fault what happened," she insisted. "Of course it was," Shane said. "Everything is Jesse's fault. Ask him sometime. If you get him in the right mood, he will give you detailed reasons why he is directly responsible for some of the most amazing things." Well, that's really Shane, all right. "Give him a chance," Shane added. "He'll figure out how it was his fault." Jesse decided he needed to visit the bathroom. It was sunny out again, he noticed. Shane settled himself calmly on the edge of the bed. Gisela shadowed Jess out to the hall. "Why do you let him say things like that?" she asked, keeping her voice low. Jessie shrugged. "Because Shane is Shane." He didn't really have a better answer to offer. She wasn't going to understand if he tried to explain. "Don't worry about it." She didn't look like she liked that idea, which meant she was deliberately letting him see her dissatisfaction. But she shrugged and sighed. "All right." He heard her footsteps on the stairs while he closed the bathroom door. "You're an idiot," Shane said bluntly when he returned. Jess sat on the bed facing him. "Why this time?" "You left a room like this, in a house like this, with meals like that." He gestured at another plate of food on the chest. "In a place where you aren't being abused in any way I've heard you mention. And you came back to my one-room apartment and eating what we can afford after the rent's been paid by me fucking strangers and you begging spare change and shoplifting and occasionally helping me, in between cleaning out the local urban wildlife. Did you have a short circuit in there somewhere?" "I had a reason." "Oh, what? This I've got to hear." "They lied." "And of course you've never told a lie in your life." "I never called someone my friend and then hurt him." "Bullshit." "When?" "I put myself on the list a dozen times or so, except I know you too fucking well to bother getting hurt when you do something stupid. There's Kevin, starting when he came to the city to challenge an elven mage to defend you, and we turned around and you were gone. The fact that you are always complaining that no one ever listens to your side of things, when at the moment you've got a lot of people willing to listen and wishing you would listen. He's the one who judged without asking. Which is exactly what you're doing." He pitched his voice to a childish whine. "He hit me first, Mommy, so I did it back to him." "It's a bit more complicated than that. I trusted him." "And he made one mistake. He was stressed over school and walked into a trap, and you're going to punish him and yourself and everyone else who got busy and stressed for a couple of weeks for it forever. Christ, Jess, for once in your life, would you get your fucking act together?" He got up, picked up the plate of food, and held it out to him. "Here, eat. Then go on back to sulking. I'm going to go back to talking to Flynn. He actually makes sense, which is more than I'll get up here." That only made the chaos inside worse. Later, he came half awake and opened his eyes on darkness when Shane coiled against him in bed. "Thought you're mad at me," he mumbled, snuggling close anyway. "You expect me to sleep with Kevin, maybe? And it's hardly the first time I've ever been mad at you." Night. He might have imagined the gentleness of Shane's voice when he said, "Good night, Jess." April 1995. Quicksilver Sphinx article Miscellanea by Nick Winter. Hiya, folks! Isn't it great to have spring back? Not that this was much of a winter. Aaron Fitzgerald and Josh Newman are getting handfasted. Ceremony, I'm told, is going to be relatively quiet, for close friends and family only, but it's going to be followed by a huge party to which everyone is invited. Magda Dragonfire, being Josh's sister, I'm told Dragonfire are doing most of the plotting for the handfasting, and the potluck dance and general celebration to come afterwards. They're doing it on the full moon, which is Saturday the 15th. Exotica update. About a third of Exotica, rather alarmingly, is graduating this year at the college, and some are scattering back to their hometowns. Those remaining are planning to organize a production of the Rocky Horror Show. Anyone interested in being in it should contact one of the Exotica folks. We're going to miss the true Exotica performances, though. You'll be long and well remembered. Sorry, cat hair bothering me. There's a Renaissance fair being planned for August, tentatively in the park, in and around the trees. I'm told that all ideas are welcome, and the organizers are hoping to arrange food, entertainment, a market, costumes, and all manner of other things. Get a hold of Coven's Prism or Shadow Star if you're interested in being part of it rather than being a visitor. Coven Skydrum is organizing an Earth Day celebration, Saturday the 22nd, in the park. Partly native, including drumming, partly Wiccan/Druidic, with other stuff tossed in. Apparently there will be some tree planting, too, and a healing circle for anyone who feels they need it. They plan to start around noon, and run past sunset until everyone goes home. As usual, Brian has some temporary help at the library until all school is out for the summer, although it's starting a bit earlier this year. This means it will be open more hours for the use of all those who are busily studying for exams and scrambling to finish major assignments. He already has someone, so don't get hopeful. His name is Shane. He came back to Haven with Jesse. Dion found some interesting new witch techniques of water magic he'd like to share. I gather he came across an old book by Morgan Starlock himself. Some, he says, works better than the rest, but water magic isn't his strongest area, and he'd like to see one of the water-oriented witches try it, along with any other witch who's curious. Morgan appears to have learned it from a native shaman, who appears to have had some kind of kin or coven connection with him, but the exact nature of it remains unstated. If I get a chance, I'll comb through it, and maybe try a couple of things, and give you another opinion. Historically speaking, Giovanna Albertine, a healer to whom we should all be grateful for her many contributions to healing knowledge, died 23 years ago, the 12th. Among her accomplishments, she researched and proved the disease transmission odds between human, wolf, dryad, and elf. Her theory was that the bubonic plague, syphilis, tuberculosis, and, well, you get the idea, were in large part responsible for our present low numbers. If you haven't been paying attention, we have had HIV cases in Haven and the others, 6 in fact, 2 human, 2 elf, 1 dryad, and a latent wolf. At present it looks like full wolves are immune, like they are to almost everything else, but they might be able to carry it. Let's not make AIDS the one that wipes us out. I'm sure Giovanna will forgive me for using her death as an occasion for saying this. Long live sensuality, but play safe so you live long enjoying it. "40. Kev?" Kevin looked up fast from cursing silently at his homework for his inability to concentrate. He found the last person he expected, hovering in the doorway. "What's up?" he asked, keeping his tone carefully neutral. "Can we talk?" "Of course we can." Jess came all the way in, and joined him on the bed, hands tangled together in his lap, and eyes low. "Zella said something that I don't know just how evil a trap Rebecca set, because I don't know what happened with you and her." Kevin winced. "Evil. Good word." I know someone or other told me you and Deanna were in Rebecca's coven once, and that has something to do with why she hates you so much, but that's about it. Not something he particularly wanted to think about, but all things considered, Jess had a right to know. Hey, stretchy boy. For that matter, he'd have faced worse if it would help Jess forgive him. Originally, it was Dia and I and Wolf we grew up with, Carl. You know Coven Helix, Dia and Gisella's parents. My parents apparently fell in love while he was here at the college. He's a mage, although not a remarkably strong one, so he pretty much had to join a wolf coven. But my mother wanted to stay solitary. Which is normally just fine, because with that whole complicated genetic compatibility thing, there's no one in my dad's coven he could have kids with anyway. When I was 12, my dad's coven moved out of Haven to Raven Rock. Combination of reasons that made it pretty hard not to. But my mom wanted to stay here, which was okay with me. Usually with mages, our gifts wake up over a few months, around 14 or so. But sometimes, especially in really strong mages, they wake up in a matter of days or weeks early. Carl decided it was his job to protect me, and where I was, Dia was, of course, so even in high school we were effectively a coven. I had a wonderful time showing off, playing games. Most mages do, to some degree. Most mages outgrow it before long. A lot of it is novelty. Sometimes they were more like pranks, and okay, sometimes they were kind of mean, just because I could. And sometimes it annoyed people, but not anything really bad. More brat than bully. If I could show off and get attention by doing something useful or helpful instead, that was good too. Just as well, because my mother pretty much lost or gave up on any control over what I was doing, around the time it became clear how strong I am. She was nervous about trying to discipline a mage to begin with, and when I started refusing to obey her, she got outright scared, and started giving in more and more. Thomas kept me more or less disciplined while he was teaching me, but training doesn't take all that long, since so much of it is instinct and practice anyway. So at 16, I was a newly full-trained mage, and I was excessively proud of the fact, and there was really nothing to stop me from being a royal pain, except that I never liked doing any real harm. Along came Rebecca. She moved here from Endor to start at the college. She was a couple of years older. You know how beautiful she is. And we had no idea what she was capable of. Bane must have told you how some wolves get extremely unstable because of being forced to live in ways that go counter to natural instinct. She's a perfect example. Brian warned us a time or two. I think he got it from wolves in Endor, but we didn't listen. We let her join us. Big mistake. Yeah, there's the understatement of the year. He looked down and sighed. Rebecca is fixated on the idea that mixed village culture sacrifices individuality and personal freedom for harmony and safety. To a teenager who was being told constantly that I should act more responsible and was more interested in playing and exploring than in a future as an adept with a boring, sensible job and a series of teenage mages to teach, well, someone telling you that you shouldn't listen to anyone else and you should only do what you want to do is pretty tempting. For a little while, we saw her as a kind of martyr to free thought, someone telling a brilliant truth that no one else understood, just us, and they were trying to silence her. I started seeing myself as her champion and defender, and she encouraged it to the point that I came within a hair of getting expelled for fighting and intimidation. Carl, well, you have some idea by now what kind of power an alpha has over the rest of the pack. It's all in how it's used. He knew Jess knew that, had watched him struggle with the concept, and eventually come to terms with it, under Bane and Eva's extremely protective and patient, if not always comprehending, care. Jess listened quietly to Kevin's tale of everything that had happened, and how Deanna had forced a choice and Bane had taken a chance. his expression betraying nothing. Kevin made no effort to hide anything or excuse anything, simply told the truth. I've been really acting like an idiot, haven't I? Jess sighed when Kevin finished. No, Kevin said. You've been acting like someone who has been hurt too many times, and as soon as you let your guard down, you got hurt again. Believe me, Jess, I am in no position to yell at you. I did a few spectacularly stupid things while I was trying to get my life put back together. Like what? Kevin sighed to himself, but now was not the time to leave things buried, not if it could possibly start rebuilding the trust he had lost. So, he told Jess about the scar. About the scar that still marked his left arm, about halfway up. He'd gone to Deanna's, found her and Cynthia talking in the kitchen, and Cynthia mentioned needing to find Laurie. Kevin asked if he could help, since he was right there. The whiplash pain when Cynthia had simply looked at him, wondering if he'd attack her for saying no, stayed vivid in his memory, even now. He grabbed the knife Deanna was using to chop vegetables, slashed his arm open, and swore to Cynthia on his blood that he would never attack her or her coven mates again. Deanna, snagging a clean dish towel to wrap around his arm. Idiot, are you trying to kill yourself? As if anyone but you cares. And gating himself home. He had refused to let Deanna call a healer when she showed up at his door moments later, or to leave the house, so she had done her best and stayed there to hold him while he spent the next hour crying. For days he wouldn't go out, not for school, not to go to Deanna's, not for anything, and only for Deanna would he open the door. His mother, who hadn't yet reached the point of physically throwing him out, but had already largely dissociated herself emotionally, had tried only once. The phone he ignored or left to his mother to answer. When Bane asked, and Deanna answered, the result was everyone mad at everyone. Out of the anger and the pain and the fear, though, some good had come. Opening the door, expecting Deanna, stunned to see Flynn. Alone. What are you doing here? Flynn gave him a tentative smile, violet grey eyes meeting his shyly and then dropping. I thought maybe we could see if my cards can turn up anything useful. If you want to try, anyway. Kevin looked down at the scar and held out his arm to show Jess. I never did let a healer touch it, even though Dia thought it needed stitches. I told her I was going to make sure I never forgot how much it hurt when everyone believed I could never be anything but what they thought I was. He smiled ruefully. It didn't work, I guess. Sometimes I need things pounded into my skull. Sometimes we all do. Except I've got Shane to do the pounding for me. What did he mean by that? From what Gisela had said, all Shane did was pour more verbal abuse on him than Kevin would take from anybody, and Jess just let him. Then again, he had already come to the conclusion that there was more to Shane than Shane wanted anyone to see, on many levels. I think, Jess said slowly, that's sort of like why I ran. Panic reaction. Get away from something that hurts. And there's... He closed his eyes, struggling visibly with something. Kevin decided to stay quiet and let him choose what he wanted to do. While they'd been talking, the room had turned to twilight. He glanced at the lamp at the head of the bed, undecided, not wanting to startle Jess, but reluctant to continue this conversation, all but blind to anything but the heat image of Jess himself. Wolves use body language too much. I'll miss something if I can't see. He reached out physically and switched on the lamp. Jess paid no attention at all, beyond his eyes narrowing briefly until they adjusted. I know I messed up by running, but I always run. He stopped again. I told you I don't remember stuff. My life basically starts in the summer of '89, and no one can do anything. Kevin likely could, but not without heavy damage. Yes, and that you were in foster homes. For a while. Then I got adopted by this lawyer and his wife. That was really cool. Except, he didn't want me. He wanted an instant model family that would make him look good. He started complaining about my hair. I wanted it too long, and about my clothes. I liked black too much, and denim and leather too much. I liked moon stuff and pentagrams and daggers and things. I always have, for as long as I can remember. But I was just an ordinary kid then. I did reasonably good in school and stayed out of trouble, and none of it meant the kinds of things he thought it did. One night, he had both his partners and their wives over for dinner, and I messed up. I said something I wasn't supposed to, and his voice broke. He hurt me. He shuddered. I can't, he said pleadingly. Behind Jesse's dark eyes, for a heartbeat, Kevin saw a child, terrified and bewildered. Tentatively, he closed a hand around Jess's. I get the idea, he said gently. I lost it. Grades started to drop. I started talking back to teachers when they asked what was wrong. I started getting into fights. I was sometimes depressed and sometimes crazy, and I kept doing things I never did before. They said I had a behavior problem and I couldn't tell anybody what was really wrong. That it was just because he was trying to control every thought and every word and every action and make every choice for me, and he punished me bad when I did anything else. I ran away. I was 15, I think, and the cops took me home. They never asked me why I ran. I kept running away. Shane found me. He taught me who and where to stay away from. Everything about surviving. He let me stay with him. Another pause. Jess, if it's too hard to say, don't. I'm not expecting anything. I have to tell you why. There were these people I was hanging around with. A bunch of runaways and throwaways and whatever. And one of them offered to let me try what she was on one night when I was feeling really bad. And it helped. It made me feel better. So I started using it more and more often. Uppers to make me feel better, and downers so I could relax and sleep, and sometimes LSD just for the hell of it. I tried stopping once. I can't remember why, but after a couple of days of having my feelings completely out of my power to control them, I didn't have much by the way of physical withdrawal symptoms. Maybe a little bit of being wolf, even before it was awake. I just couldn't stand it, having to feel everything, knowing there was a way to stop it if I chose to. You haven't ever felt anything that awful. He paused to reflect. Maybe you have. The wild joy of being at the heart of a storm of purest power, knowing he could form it into any shape with nothing but his own will. The wrenching transition back each time. The aching, gnawing self-doubt every time he saw Rebecca. Yeah, Jess, I think maybe I have. Kevin saw a single tear escape, saw Jess bite his lip hard. He reached for the box of Kleenex without comment, sent a silent request to Deanna not to let anyone come upstairs for any reason until he said otherwise. She acknowledged, without asking why. I survived. Some don't. Most people don't have Shane watching their backs, either. At least somebody cared that I was alive, even if he was mad at me a lot. Only, even more, I just got called bad and useless and stuff like that. When Rebecca found me, I hadn't been home in days, and I know he had the cops keeping an eye out for me. I missed some family thing he had told me I had to be there for, and it would have been bad. I went to a party a friend invited me to. Shane didn't come. And sometimes when I used to drink a lot or whatever, I'd black out for a while and wake up north of the city. Always north. So I think it was more than just trying to be somewhere the local cops wouldn't spot me. Maybe part of me always knew more than I think I remember. I don't know. I had sort of wondered about that. When I went back, Shane said I could live with him all the time, and we survived okay. I really truly tried to stay clean, but sometimes on the street things can get so bad. You don't know how bad. I didn't slip too often. It helped that it was harder every time. And then I was a wolf, and nothing worked anymore, which has to be the ultimate way to stay clean. Only I was so frustrated, and Avril had this bottle of wine, and it did work on me, and I wanted to not drink anymore, but I couldn't, and I don't remember anything after that. I tried, I really did. A couple more tears got away, matching the urgency of his voice, and his hand around Kevin's clenched tight. All the power of fire and sunlight waiting for him to call on it. Carefully, ready to pull back, Kevin slid his free arm around him. Jess resisted briefly, then sagged against him, and Kevin wrapped both arms around the shivering werewolf. All I could think was, I fucked up again. Nobody'll believe me. Jess, you aren't bad or useless. I am damn proud of you for what you have managed to do, and the more I find out, the more proud I get. I think I know what you mean. I can call more power than most mages, and it's an incredible high. It gives power tripping a whole new dimension. I came so close when I was destroying the constructs that were chasing you. Only Gisela reminded me there were more important things to do. We aren't quite as different as you think. Maybe not. It trailed off into a sob. Kevin just held him while he cried, wondering how long it had been. I promise, he whispered to Jess. I'm not ever again going to let you down when you need me, Wolf Cub. I promise I'll be here always. It took a very long time for Jesse to finally quiet, still sniffling and trying to catch his breath. I'm sorry. How did I know that would be the first thing you'd say? Don't be. You needed it. I'd tell you everything if I could, Jesse said, voice low. Only I can't. There's some things I just can't say. It's okay. I'm here if you ever need me, but take it easy on yourself, would you? Old pain that goes that deep takes time. I think I'm about to fall asleep. He pulled away. I'm not surprised. Jess got up, swayed briefly, then caught himself. He paused by the door. Hey, I know Gisela's mad at Shane for how he acts with me, and I bet she told the rest of you he treats me really badly or something. Leave him alone. I know him too well for it to hurt. If he didn't care, I'd be dead 1,000,000 times, and lots of those times he would have been safer staying out of it. Kevin thought of Shane standing there alone, between an unconscious Jesse and an angry, demon-summoning elven mage. I hear you. Sleep well, Jess. So, that's the end of chapter 40. I think I'm going to call it quits there, because I'm actually feeling really tired for no reason that I can figure out. Don't know why I'm this tired. I actually got some decent sleep, but if I'm this tired, then I can't read well, and I would rather just call it a day. I am going to try to give you another quick view of my sleepy boy over here, because good lord, I wish I could relax like that. Yeah, it's not an ideal view, but you get the idea. There's a belly, a head over here somewhere, and he's a happy boy. Alright. So, like I said, I'm going to keep streaming daily until I get to the end of Black Wolf, and then I will take a look at whether I'm going to start another story or not, depending on what kind of interest there seems to have been by that point. I realize this is all very informal, and it's just me reading my stuff and occasional kitty interruptions and that sort of thing. But if anybody's enjoying listening, that's awesome, and I'm quite happy to keep doing it. The text is available at prismcat.com/blackwolf. if you want to actually find the whole thing. Wattpad is the most up-to-date version. It's also a really handy, easy way to leave me comments on it if you're so inclined. I love comments. Most writers do, by the way. Other than that, stay safe. Stay home if you possibly can. Stay away from other people. Maintain social distancing. Wash your hands. Wash your hands lots and thoroughly, properly. And try to remember we're all in this together and we're gonna get through this somehow. Please be kind to each other. Everybody's stressed. Everybody's scared. Alright, so I will see you guys tomorrow. And maybe by then I'll think of a different setup that will give me some back support without all the distractions from the living room. Okay, bye guys.